Welcome back to the Rock and Blues Experience. And coming up, I'm going to be talking to a Southern rock legend who grew up in Jacksonville back in the 50s. He went to school with the great Ricky Medlock and spent time in his early recording days working with Lynyrd Skynyrd. This was before he made a name for himself with Blackfoot, who had huge success from the mid-70s through to the mid-80s. He is Greg T. Walker, and he joins me to talk about his latest project, Two Wolf, which is a blues rock quartet that also includes the incredible talents of Lance Lopez. Now, before that, just a reminder, you can catch up with all the latest content on the website, www.therockandbluesexperience.com, and all other social channels, including Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Let's begin, though, with a look at what is making the front pages of this month's rock music press. Now, Greg T. Walker grew up in Jacksonville at a time when it spawned a generation of talents that went on to appear on record and on stage with Lynyrd Skynyrd, the Allman Brothers Band, Molly Hatchet, 38 Special, and Blackfoot. Greg's latest band is called Two Wolf. It's been around for a few years, but with all the issues surrounding COVID, everything was pushed back until now, that is. They finally released their debut album. Live dates are being added, and a follow-up is already being discussed following the success of this release. I met up with Greg at home this week to talk about the new album and to look back of those incredible successes that Blackfoot had between 1979 and 1985. So let's talk then about the band Two Wolf, and firstly, the name Two Wolf, because this is actually your tribal name, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
And there's actually a story as well, isn't there, about the whole Two Wolves thing, which has been handed down through the generations, you know, the grandfather telling the grandson about the two wolves. Yeah, basically the fight between good and evil. So did you have this story told to you when you were young?
I did hear that story, but actually when I was given the name Two Wolf, that was because of a vision that I had up in the Rocky Mountains of Montana, kind of what they call a vision quest. And
sure.
You get in a solitary place and let your mind wander, and you see certain things, and that's how the name came about. Prior to that, it was Lone Wolf, for many years. And then through my vision,
right. So the project itself has been in existence. This is a Two Wolf for what, over a decade now. And obviously we had COVID, which delayed everything. But one of the objectives when you started the band, you said, was to keep the style of Blackfoot alive.
That was the natural progression, is to do what I had always done, as Blackfoot did, stay in that vein of what we now call classic rock. At the time it was current, back in
Yeah.
just kind of that real hard, strong rock and roll, in your face, no pretense, just, go for the juggler, as we say, hard and heavy.
And in order to keep that Blackfoot spirit alive and kicking, you've got to have the right band around you, get the right personnel. It's obviously evolved a bit, but what has completed this undoubtedly was getting Lance Lopez to sign on finally. This was all down to Tommy Curiale, wasn't it?
That's correct, yes. He introduced us to Lance. So Lance was the first guitar player to come in, and he had a lot going on at the time, so he didn't stay around very long. He had some dates to fulfill. So Chris Bell came in.
Mm-hmm.
I had known Chris at that time about 5 years already. So Chris came in, and the same thing, he was very busy. So he left, so we went three-piece for a while. And then I got Chris and Lance both back in the band at the same time, and I said, now I've got the dream band. That's what I wanted. Great guitar players and great vocalists. Thank God for that, because I don't like to sing.
Oh. Although you do a bit of singing on the album, but he is such a versatile player, isn't he? He's played with so many people.
Yes.
Jeff Beck was an admirer. He was a great friend of Prince. There are so many projects. Supersonic Blues Machine was another one. Last year's solo album was also fantastic. So he's very busy. So to get him to focus and get in and on board with what you're doing was a great piece of work on your front.
All the cards fell into place, and just grateful and blessed about that all the time. You couldn't have planned this and made it any better.
Alongside him then, Rusty Valentine on drums, Chris Bell, guitar and vocal. And if you don't know him, and people might not know him, then his bio gives a great line, and it says simply, he's a guitar-slinging force of nature.
Yeah, I like that.
It sums him up, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And we were fortunate to find Rusty because we went through a couple of drummers in the early formation of Two Wolf. And when Rusty came into the fold, that completed everything. Previously, every version with the different lineups was a great lineup. But, you hit that magic moment where it all comes together. And you can't predict it. You just know when it's right. And then we had that magic. This takes me back to all the years before. Like Blackfoot, we were a cohesive unit, and we had that mental telepathy thing going on. We could read each other's minds, so to speak. And that's what happened to Two Wolf once we got the lineup solidified. So lucky us.
People like to hang labels, don't they, on the band and the type of music. But let's tell people here, firstly, what this isn't Southern rock. It is far more aggressive sounding blues rock with a much more modern feel to it. It doesn't sound like anything that has been rehashed from the 70s.
Exactly. Being from the South, when you're raised up in that environment, that's natural. So, of course, there's those overtones a little bit. But it's the same with Blackfoot. We were a harder-edged band than all the other bands from the South. And we're all friends. A lot of us had known each other in our youth, literally. And we just wound up in different bands. But, yeah, we were the harder-edged, more rock band of all the Southern rock, so-called Southern rock that came out. We were more that in your face, as I say.
So the southern rock blues or the southern rock metal thunderstorm shows up on the first track on this album, which is Keep On Moving, which, after all you've read and you've heard about the band and its personnel, is exactly what you want to be hearing belting out of your speakers. It's the perfect start.
I actually wrote that song a long, long time ago and had never recorded it. And I had a demo version of it. So when the guys heard it, they said, "We need to cut that song." And I said, yeah, it's just a song. It's nothing special. And they said, "Yeah, there is something special." But it was because of the lineup that made it so strong. The demo was not quite that aggressive, though I hoped it would be. And it did turn out, thanks to the band. It's a group effort, and they made that song just crank.
Now, as well as the originals on this 11-song album, there are 3 Blackfoot classics. We've got Too Hard to Handle, which came from Marauder. We got Fox Chase from Tomcat, and we have Diary of a Working Man. Now, out of all of the catalogue of songs that you've done, how did you boil it down to those 2? When you decided you were going to include them and do some, modern updated versions, why did you pick those?
That's more Chris and Lance, because they love the Blackfoot or Attack, and I would have been happy just to do maybe one Blackfoot song, but they wanted to do 3, and I said, "Really, 3?" And they said, "We just love these songs so much. We want to pay honor to it." I said, "Well, let's try it," and it came out great. I mean, we never played Diary of a Working Man live in Blackfoot one single time. Never. So we have...
Wow, that's a story.
Yeah, I don't know why. We just never played it live, even in our club days. And when Chris and Lance, when the band got to be what it is now, that's the first thing they said. We need to do Diary of a Working Man. I said, I'd love to, because we never did it live. And it's effortless. And thanks to Chris and Lance, because they love that.
They didn't fancy doing Train or a Highway Song. I mean, the 2 big classics.
Right. Yeah, you kind of dig into the past catalog. There's a lot to choose from, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, that was Chris that picked those 3.
There was a dark story, wasn't there, behind Diary of a Working Man? I remember Ricky Medlott telling that story, that he'd been sat watching a movie at 2 or 3 in the morning about this guy who'd lost his wife and his kids and jobs money. And at the end, you just see this face, which is contorted in anger. The screen goes black and you hear a gunshot, but you don't actually know whether he killed himself. I mean, it's a very dark song.
Yeah, the last line in that song is, "So ends the Diary of a Working Man," and it leaves it open.
Yeah.
Did he take it? I mean, you don't want to commit to that ever. You hope, no, he did not take his life. Maybe work things out.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a typical story. It's a working class lyric that talks about heartache, and your girl runs off with another guy, and we've all been through that in our life. If you're over the age of 20, that's going to happen. Yeah, it's kind of based on that. And we had and played cello on that. On the record, I used a mellotron, and I couldn't get a cello sound, so it kind of sounds like a flute, but I always, in my mind, heard it on a cello, which I can't play. And so we had a friend come in, Nick Nguyen, from the band Bone Pony. I sent him the track, and he came to the studio, and boom, I mean, within 30 minutes, he had it done. It's not a real featured part, but it really warms that track up. If you listen, you can hear the cello in places.
The other thing that is worth noting here about the album is that you were all in a studio to record it. Now, how much do you think that enhances the quality of the end product, that you're all together as opposed to sending each other, files and recording at home on your own?
That will never happen. It's always got to be all at once in the studio. Yeah, we're all in the same room with the drums. You can see the amps behind glass doors because obviously we're really loud to record. But it gave us the feeling of the way we would play live, because we're all in the same room with eye contact. And you've got the energy of the drums acoustically, because Rusty doesn't play light. He plays very hard. And that turned out to be a blessing. We had done that in past recordings, even back in the day, but not to this degree. It was really a great experience to be in that same room. We were just bouncing off each other, feeding off of each other. And the energy was off the chart.
And it tells in the end product, I can tell you. And it also tells, because you read the reviews of the album, from multiple sources, and everybody says exactly the same thing. It's a great album. It's exactly what you want to hear. There's nothing pretentious about it at all. What it says is what it does and what it delivers.
Well worded. I like that. I'll have to borrow that from you. Yeah.
So live then worked to promote this. You've got a selection of dates coming up in the diary. Any potential full tours being talked about? Are you looking at maybe festival appearances for next year?
Yeah.
Because obviously we're nearly at the end of that. But are you looking at any of that?
Yeah, we do have some days into the fall over here, and I get asked this a lot. Why don't we come over to the UK? I miss it. I love it.
Oh.
Because we actually went over in 1979 for about, I think maybe 4 weeks. And I don't remember. It seemed like we were doing some shows with Scorpions at that time, because they had been opening up over here for us with Ted Nugent. And so then in 1980, we started going back, 3 times a year for extended tours. And I said this to somebody yesterday. The feeling that we got when we went to UK first and then all the European countries, the crowd embraced us. They're like, you are our new adopted sons. So any city, any country we played, it was always the same reaction. It was a nice feeling that people love the music. So we really miss it.
Well, there would certainly be plenty of people that would love to see you back. But I want to just look back at your career, which literally from the day that your mother brought home that ukulele and then you did piano and you played sax, music has been there right from the beginning. I mean, there doesn't ever appear to have been a time when there wasn't a musical instrument or anything involved with music in your life.
Exactly. It literally started at 5 years old. So I don't remember a life, without music. It's just always been part of my life. And not everybody can say that. I mean, I can't even think about what life would be today without music in it. I'm going just as strong now as I ever did. I can't even imagine not being on stage somewhere the rest of my life.
So you grew up in Jacksonville at a time when it spawned this generation of talent. The Allmans, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Molly, Hatchet, 38 Special. You were obviously at school with Ricky Medlock, who bizarrely was on this program last week, and Jackson Spires. I mean, when you look back now, an incredible moment in music history to be growing up when you literally will be bumping into a future, major star, a major act, almost on every corner of every day.
Yeah, I mean, some of us, some of the guys in Skynyrd, um, Allman's, we were casual friends before we were in any of those bands individually. We'd bump into a music store. We played the same teen centers and non-alcoholic places back then because you had to have work permits if they served alcohol. Like they were Navy based in Jacksonville. So we were all in the union and we had the little cards and all of that. Nobody could predict this. And then fast forward to 1969, all of a sudden, like, this is the second coming that now have changed their name to Allman Brothers. So we had been friends with a couple of those guys then. Dave Lubeck and I from Hatchet, we'd been friends since the 8th grade. Leon Wilkerson, about the same time. We were musical friends in different bands. Then when I joined Skynyrd in the end of 71, we were already friends. So my time in there was a great experience. And I simply left to reform Blackfoot because I really missed Blackfoot. People ask me, did I ever regret leaving Skynyrd? I said, no, not at all. It was a conscious decision. I wanted to reform Blackfoot because I started it along with Ricky and Jackson and Charlie, and I wanted to get back to that and pick up where we left off and take it as far as we could. And we made a little bit of a impact, in the music world after that.
I love the band name, by the way, that you had for what I think was your first band. They were called the Rockin' Aces.
Yes.
Brilliant name.
Mm-hmm. I've still got the bass drum. To this day, it's out in my storage.
Oh, fabulous.
It's a wooden bass drum with 4 lugs. That's it. Just 4 that holds the heads on. And they're calfskin heads. That's all you had back then. So we took a ruler and a pencil, and carefully, this big block letter says The Rockin' Aces. I've still got that bass drum.
Love it. So you were at the Gator Bowl Stadium, September the 11th, 1964, to see the Beatles. What do you remember, if anything, about that day? I mean, obviously there was the controversy around it about the segregation issue, and the Beatles said they wouldn't play unless there was none. And it was also, I didn't know this, it was the day after a huge hurricane. So Ringo's kit literally was nailed to the stage. But what do you remember about what was obviously an amazing day?
I was reminded of that segregation issue recently, but I don't remember that being an issue. Probably wasn't open to understand it anyway. I can tell you that looking down at that stage and all the screaming girls around, I don't know how many tens of thousands of people were there. It was total pandemonium. All you could hear was screaming. You couldn't hear a damn note or a word that the Beatles played and sang. It was just crazy. And Roy Orbison was on the bill. And I already knew who he was because he had some hits as well. And I just remember looking down at that stage, and the girl I took with me, I think I mowed yards to buy those tickets. They were $5 a piece. That was a lot of money, when you're like 12 years old. And I said, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And she said, what? And I kept pointing to the stage. I said, that. Because what is that? I said, that. Be in a band like that. And she says, you've been in a band since you were 10, with Ricky and Jackson. I said, I know, but I want to be that, meaning big time as a career. And, 20 years after graduation, she sent me a note and she said, you stuck to your goals and you achieved it when everybody else wanted to go to college. They said, what are you going to do? And I said, play in a band. It's all I've ever done. I have no desire to get a degree in anything, though I did years later. I just did that because I wanted to learn other things about, life. But what a life-changing moment.
Mm.
I've got a clock over here with a friend made me with a vinyl. The bottom half is a real vinyl record, and it's got a little plaque and it has
Yeah, yeah.
a date. Yeah, it's a special gift. Yeah, huge Beatles fan, number one.
73, the classic Blackfoot lineup emerging after your time in New York. Now, the name Blackfoot, again, first up it was Hammer. They existed. Then you were going to be Free, and Paul Rodgers releases
Yeah.
All Right Now.
Mhm.
Blackfoot is actually a plural, isn't it, of black feet, which is, again, goes back into your heritage that the Blackfeet Indians actually existed.
Yeah, that's a Plains tribe, out in the northwestern plains, the whole plains culture, the Cheyenne, the Crow, and others.
Yeah, yeah.
But we were watching a Johnny Cash variety show in New York City on a Sunday evening. And, we had to change the name of the band, as we had just done, as you said. And Johnny Cash always featured tribal leaders from different tribes around the country on his once-a-week variety show. This happened to be the Lakota Sioux, and it was a Blackfoot band. There's like many bands of the Sioux. And he said, these are the Blackfoot Sioux. And Jackson said, Blackfoot, that's what we should name the band. And it's like, yeah, it sounded bold. Jackson, Cheyenne, Cherokee, and French. I'm Muskogee Creek. So it's like, why not? We're not either one of those tribes, but we're native. So it stuck.
So you sent your demo to Muscle Shoals, the producers up there who knew you from your time with Skynyrd. So David Hood and Jimmy Johnson, was it, who did those 71 sessions, and they were so impressed. They offered you recording facilities for free.
No, not exactly. We met when, Ricky and I were in Skynyrd, and we went to Muscle Shoals and did what became, I think, Skynyrd's First and Last and part of Street Survivors that came out later. And then when we reached Blackfoot, we did send a demo to Jimmy and David. And they liked what they heard. It was an 8-track tape back then. And said, if you get down here, because we were up in New Jersey at the time, we'll split it 50-50. So if we can get you a record deal, we will recoup our money. And we're like, let's give it a shot. So we went down and recorded it. They found us a deal on Island Records, the first album, No Reservations. Next year we went back, and we were on Epic from CBS. And then we went 3 years without a label until Strikes came out. But Strikes is the one that, kind of put us on the map. But No Reservations is still my favorite album to this day. Partly because it was the first.
Oh, wow.
A lot of energy on that. So, yeah, I love that. I listened to it a while back for the first time in years. I said, I forgot how much I love that record.
As good as the album is, obviously, it was always a lot about the live performance, the live event with you. And one of those moments of fate was New Year's Eve, wasn't it, in 77. Ali Nyali, manager of Brandsville Station, was there, saw a gig, took you on, got the deal with Atco Records, and then along came Strikes. Train, Highway Song, and the rest is history.
Yeah, his sister, Al's sister at the time was, I think, vice president of Atco and wound up president later on. So that gave a foot in the door, as they say. And so it was at least listened to and fortunately liked. And then, it led to a deal. And yes, that was Strikes.
You were, as you said a few times, always lumped together as Southern rock, but it was a bit more Southern metal. And you were always heavy. It was to do with the influences, your influences. Jeff Beck, Yardbirds, Kinks, Peter Green, and the Beatles, obviously.
Uriah Heep, Wishbone Ash, Deep Purple. We were listening to them when nobody had heard of them over here yet. 1969. And people thought that was our original music. No, it's a band from England. Most of them was UK. And here I am, still friends.
The tours that you were on in these times, in the 70s and the 80s, incredible tours with just about every major act. But the one thing that stood out, there was a lot of international acts. And I don't know whether it might not have been you that said, hey, look, the only guy that would touch us in the US was Ted Nugent.
Yes.
He was the only guy,
I was hoping you would bring that up. Actually, we talked a few weeks ago, he and I, because we've remained friends since that time. And he was asked at one point.
Wow, yeah.
Some interviewer asked him about, he noticed that he took the Blackfoot guys out quite often to do shows. And he asked how that worked out. And Ted said, I'll take those Blackfoot boys out with us anytime because they make me work. And I thought, wow, what a compliment. So they make me play. I got to be on my toes, I can tell you that. But we stayed friends. Like I say, we just talked a few weeks ago and had a great catch-up conversation. And I hope we do some shows with him maybe next year. He's pretty much done for this year. It's hunting season, so he doesn't.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, over in the UK, there was this thing called the new wave of British heavy metal, which saw this explosion of festivals. And you did Monsters of Rock at Donington Park. It was a huge crowd, 65,000 people there. AC/DC, Whitesnake, Slade, who were back on form as well. What was it like for you to appear at this event? What were you expecting? I remember you said you flew in low over the crowd. You had a plane hired because you were off to Germany the following day. But
right.
What was the day like? What do you remember?
I'd never seen anything like that. And when we got up and played, the trend back then, people would throw like plastic bottles at you. Not as an compliment. We didn't know that at first. Like, hey, hold on. And we found out later that if they do that, that means they really like you. But, it was a sea of people deep, as far as you could focus. Everybody was rocking. And it was a great lineup of the bands you mentioned. What an experience. And then we did that, in other countries with other festivals also. We did some with
You
and Def Leppard and of course Scorpions. That's the main three of the British bands. What an experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you were back. I mean, it went down so well, and you're touring a lot, as you've said, in the UK from 1980 onwards. And you did Reading Festival in 82, which deserves a mention because, again, this was almost all rock festival at that time. Oh. And it was headlined, your day was headlined by Iron Maiden with Bruce Dickinson. They were doing a number of the Beast thing here. Right. But you came on after Dave Edmunds. Do you remember Dave Edmunds?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, we all hung out.
And did you meet Bruce?
Oh, yeah. We did shows together. That's when they had, Eddie, the big giant mechanical walking monster kind of thing. And yeah, over here.
Still there.
Yeah, here as well as in Europe. Yeah, we did a lot of shows together. We did tours together here and over in your part of the world. A great time.
And one more I will mention was one of the big events of the 1980s at its point was the return of Deep Purple, because you were at Nebworth, which has got this incredible history and tradition.
Yeah.
Dan Skynyrd had played there, of course. Led Zeppelin was their final performance there, but it was all about Deep Purple on the day. So another huge event. But do you remember the weather? It rained a lot.
Well, it did in the UK a lot. That's the first thing we noticed when we went over in 1999 and from 80 on. Yeah, it did rain a lot. But we lucked out most of the time. That show with Deep Purple, that led to us doing a U.S. Canadian tour a few years later. Did like 45 shows over here.
And the great thing about it is all of these bands that we're talking about, they're all still going. Iron Maiden doing the 50th anniversary.
Oh,
Ted Nugent's still out there.
yeah,
Deep Purple are still doing it.
yeah. And I'm so happy for all of them that they're able to tour like that. I wish we could get into that circle.
So it was, I was going to say, it was an incredible period for you. This from 79 to 84. You've got these 5 huge selling chart albums: Strikes, Tom Caddy, Marauder, Yoga, Vertical Smiles. It's an album a year, and the festivals and the world tours. How did you avoid, firstly, exhaustion and not getting into this whole substance abuse and arguing and it all falls apart and everything? I mean, you seem to navigate it okay. I mean, obviously what came afterwards is different, but in that period of time, it was well navigated.
Yeah, I'm proud to tell you and whoever listens that I never did a drug in my life. So I went all through that unscathed. That was kind of that whole era from late 70s into mid 80s. Most bands did the same thing that we were doing. Everybody worked a lot. I think we worked a little more than some because that's all we knew how to do was play music. Like, you would go out for 6 months and then have a week off, and then 3 days you're calling each other like, hey, what are you doing today? Nothing. What are you doing? Nothing. We don't go back out. Oh, we don't go back out for another week, and it felt like a month that we were off. It was just so ingrained in us to play and tour. The bus became our home once we got into buses, and that was our rolling hotel. We just lived to play every day, and we 6 nights a week.
So go on then. What is there anything left for you to achieve that you haven't done yet? Something that you'd like to record, somebody you'd like to record with? Would you like to get you and Ricky back together and do Blackfoot with the pair of you again? Is there anything that is just on the bucket list that you haven't done?
Ricky is still with Skynyrd and doing very well. Jackson left this world in 2005. Charlie still plays great, but he's got really bad back problems, so he can't stand up for very long. One song and he's got to sit down. It wouldn't be the same, without Jackson and Charlie, for sure. As far as future plans, I want to do one more record, and then one more record after that, and another one after that. I always want to be working on the... I can't imagine not doing that. In fact, when we were in the studio recording the one we just released, we were already talking, wow, as soon as we finish this, can't wait to start on the next one. And we still say it now. It's like, when can we get back in? That's just what we do. Write and record. There'll always be another record as long as I'm living, I hope.
Well, that was Greg T. Walker. The band is Two Wolf, and the debut album is out now. And that is it for this edition of the show. We are taking a short break, but we will return in mid-August. We've got a great lineup of varied guests to come as well. Thank you very much for watching, wherever you're watching in the world. And don't forget, if you want to connect, you can, either on the website, www.therockandbluesexperience.com, or on Facebook or YouTube, or indeed on TikTok. YouTube, by the way, now has a library of over 350 rock and blues related videos that you can watch at any time. And that is it. Until next time, from me, Tim Caple. Bye-bye for now.